Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Return to the Realm, a readers podcast from the Realm of the Elderlings series. I'm Kayiu, here with Alex and Leah, and today we're going to be covering the penultimate chapters of The Ship of Magic. We're covering chapters 28 through 32, or sorry, 29 through 32, and I don't understand how we can have another 4 chapters after this, because everything I remember happening at the end of the book goes down in this section. So it's a lot all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And before we go any further, because I know I would forget and said some spoiler, this is a readers podcast, and that means that we are going to have spoilers for all 16 books in the Realm of the Elderlings series, not just the 3 in the Live Ship Traders. So if you haven't read all of those, or if you're not fine with being spoiled for those, click off now. Otherwise, be prepared for us to just drop dumb spoilers about everything. Especially since there's a lot of juicy stuff with regards to the live ships in this section. So, okay, so the first chapter is chapter 29, Dreams and Reality. And I think there are 3 big sections in this chapter. We have a section with Malta, Kefria, and Ronica, where Kefria and Ronica get into an argument with Malta uh, over accusing her about the dream box, which she did steal, but uh, there's a lot more that goes into it. Um, then we have Paragon and Amber, who uh, it's another scene where Amber essentially tells Paragon that she wishes she could do better by him, but that his family, who Paragon still believes in, have actually abandoned him and are planning to sell him off. And finally, Kennit is like, "I want me live ship. We're gonna get me live ship."
Kennit's like, I want me live ship and I want to grow back my leg because he's still very much in denial that his leg is rotting his whole body.
Yeah. It's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Kennit, there are no 5 stages of grief. It's just denial, then anger, denial, then anger, denial, then anger.
Yeah. Speaking of Kennit, he literally basically tells us who he is in this chapter. Because he says, "By the luck in my name." And I was like, oh, Ludluck.
I
totally
that too and
missed
loved it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And we know about the Ludlucks by now, so someone could totally pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just such a the context in which it's in feels like such a generic oath type thing. So
The thing is, though, it's also following the section the section right before that is Paragon and Amber, and they're talking about the Ludlucks. So, it could be very obvious if you actually paid attention.
Mm-hmm. I didn't put that together.
Yeah, again, it's another thing of you're like, Kennit is so far off. He's on the other side of the world. What could he have to do with any of these people back in Bingtown?
I kind of remember the first read being the luck in his name, because Kennit doesn't have luck in it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just was like, oh, he must mean figuratively, and I moved along.
It's definitely a line where you go, huh, weird. Anyways.
Right, moving on.
I also, so while we're on the topic of Kennit, I focused a lot on his little wizard wood piece. And because I think that he plays a bigger role now. Because even in, I think, the last chapter, when Kennit is directing Etta to steer the Marietta to Vivacia, I think the whole time pretty much, from when Kennit is just steer straight and I'll tell you what to do when it's time, everything after that is the charm talking to Etta. It's not the person Kennit talking to her.
Yeah, I think it specifically says that like it was like his
Yeah.
bedroom voice or
And
something, which we
on
know
her
is
left
like
side, like in her left ear, and I'm like,
Yep.
that's definitely the trauma.
yeah, because he's like holding the wheel like
Yeah.
over her, right? So like the charm would be like on his somewhere, or like right next to him.
Also, I think we had a debate about this on whether the wizardwood charm was like actually part of Kennit or if there was like still some part of dragon inside of it. And this chapter, we get a little hint about that. The piece says, "This piece of wood had a great heart once. I am bound to you, but wood remembers. I am not you, Kennit, and I swear I shall not become you." So that, I'm pretty sure, answers that question.
Yep.
Yeah, at first I was like super surprised that one of my friends, Jared, is reading this series right now, and he ended up guessing the Serpent Dragon Liveship connection. At first I was so surprised, but at the last they really lay it
Yeah.
on thick at the last part of this book, and especially if you don't have like, because he hasn't read Farseer, and if you don't have like all of the like preconceptions that Farseer brings about dragons coming into this, you just have like a generic fantasy thing of like, yeah, they are mystical creatures. They do stuff.
Yeah, I
It like
think
makes sense.
without knowing about the stone dragons and everything, it can be so much easier to kind of connect those pieces and jump from the conclusions to the like correct answer.
Mhm.
Well, also like I don't know, when I started reading these, I just straight up thought that live dragons
Dang,
didn't exist in this
it wasn't
universe.
a thing that happened.
Like, so it wasn't even on my radar that that could be a thing.
Mm. Yeah, I think I was just dumb as shit because I read Tawny Man and I knew that like
Oh
they
yeah, I knew I knew that too. I forgot about that. Never
like the
mind.
okay, there's Tintaglia and the fool is like, yeah, it's the serpent. I think the fool explicitly mentions the serpent, so I knew about the serpent thing. I didn't know about the live ship connection between dragons and wizardhood. But yeah, there's a lot more clues slash hints, and I think the next chapter or the one after that, the one with Vivacia.
Since we started talking about the end of this chapter, I want to just go right. We're just going to go backwards and go in the middle because I want to talk about Paragon and Amber. There was a section where Amber's talking and she's like, "I don't believe in luck, Paragon. I believe in fate, and my fate has more terrible and heartrending facets to it than even you can imagine." And I think that Amber's talking about all of the horrible things that they have witnessed or will witness happening to Fitz. And that's all that they're focusing on because they probably can't see what will happen to them. Like,
Well,
they,
they know how they
They
die. We
don't.
know that
Yeah,
they've
they
dreamed how
know.
they die. Yeah,
Well,
they.
in the whole Tawny Man, he's like, I'm going to go there and I'm going to die there, and it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, I don't think he knows like the specifics, but he's like, I die cold and
oh,
alone,
yeah. So I bet
Mhm.
basically.
the fool gets little snippets of things like how B did, where she was like, I know that this is going to hurt and that I need to do this, but it'll like help me in the long run. Even though, like, when you know you're going to die, you
Right.
know that you don't really come back from that, except for the fool does. Almost on multiple
Hmm.
occasions.
Hmm. Yeah, I love Paragon. I love like the through line of like I feel like the first time I read this book, I didn't like get the fact that there were like these overarching themes for chapters, but I love how here it's all about like what do you want for the future and what do you imagine your present to be? And all the like everyone in this all the main characters are in this chapter like they don't believe the people around them who are telling them like the truth of their like because again the name of the chapter is dreams, telling them the truth of their reality and they're constructing it for themselves. I think it's really interesting how that ends up working out for each of them. And of course, it only ends up working out for Kenneth because he's the luckiest motherfucker on the planet. But
Is there
Yeah.
any bit in Malta section where luck is brought up too? Because there are multiple sections in each of like Paragon and Amber and Kennett section where luck is talked about or referenced. So I feel like that can also be kind of a running theme for this chapter too.
The only thing I really remember about the Malta Ronica section is that it was like reading two characters, or like the same character argue two different sides.
Oh yeah.
Because they're so similar. I was like, they're literally arguing with themselves.
And it's very funny because like Malta's like Ronica like grandmother was or like Ronica was too clever or whatever. And honestly she's not really. She's just as petty as like Malta. She just uses bigger words about
Yeah,
it.
definitely. I love that Malta's like, I can't imagine marrying a Rainwilder. Like, ugh, could you even do that? And then she proceeds to marry a Rainwilder. Like, I like that.
Yep.
Mhm. I think those are the aspects of the ending of the series which I really like, where it's like things don't always end up how
Yeah.
you expect them to, but things work themselves
Right.
out in the end anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I think Malta's storyline is like far and away my favorite in the series, which is crazy thinking about like how much I
Mhm.
hated her at this point in the series. Like
Yeah.
even rereading this chapter, I was like, oh my god. Like this little shit. And okay, to be fair, everyone in this chapter is antagonizing her. Like Kefria is literally like, it's a joke, Malta. Don't fly into a fit about it. Which like if can you imagine if like your parent was like, it's just a
Oh,
prank,
that's
bro.
so
Like, come on. Like,
fucked
don't
up.
be so like uptight. Like mhm. But also like God Malta like
Yeah.
goes off. Like
I feel like I didn't hate Malta still in this section. I can totally see her. Like, she is the perfect teenage girl because I feel like all teenage girls, like, we've all been sassy and rude and snippy and like rebelling against family and everything like that in our like early teen years. So, like, I could see where she was coming from. But I also think that the way that Ronica and Kefria treat her and react to her are the horrible, like the worst ways, and they're pushing her away even more. And the reason that she's so like hell bent and like in Kyle's corner is because he gives her love, and attention and affection and trinkets, and like he is kind to her. And if her grandma and her mother were actually loving towards her, then like she could be loyal to them and she would actually sit and listen to them and not have to rebel. But they like look at her as the enemy and as someone that they need to control, and that's not at all the way to like make her listen or understand.
and like later they're like Veronica's like she's basically not a Vestrid, she's a Haven, okay? And I'm like,
Just
are
because.
you disowning your own granddaughter?
Yeah, and she's like, oh, you don't agree with me? You're a Haven.
Like that is your granddaughter.
Doesn't
That like, and she's still a
Yeah,
child.
and it's like if you push her to become a Haven, it's because you pushed her away from you when
Yeah,
she needed y'all.
Veronica is like this trusted.
Like you could have made her a Vestrid. You had every opportunity. Like and this is assuming that like that dichotomy makes sense, which I don't think it does, but like working from their perspective.
They could, if they showed her a little bit of love and affection, she, I think, would react very differently. And the fact that they're always like
I agree.
automatically assuming the worst in her makes her want to do that. It like makes her want to rebel and be like, fine, if this is what you think of me, then I'll be this and more. And that's not how you should treat your, like, that's your baby. Kefri is ridiculous for being so mean to her. That is your baby.
Yeah, there's a line, what was the good of telling people the truth when they already believed you were wicked and the truth would just prove it to them.
I
And it's
felt
like,
so
yeah.
bad for her.
Yeah.
Even though she was
She
annoying
had-
in this section, I understood why she was like that, and I actually felt really bad for her. Except I don't like the way that she thinks about slaves, and like the way that she reacted to and treated Rach at the end of the section, I think that she was like already vulnerable. And because Rach was reaching out to try and give her that affection that she's lacking and probably craving from her family, it made her like want to push away. But still, that is not a way to treat servants, let alone like slaves. And you also shouldn't think of Rach as a slave because I'm pretty sure they're paying her.
Right.
Yeah, it's really funny how she was like, if you treated people badly, then it all comes back on you. And then like Rach is like, "Are you okay, Malta?" And she's like,
Oh,
wait, leave me alone. Clean that up."
It's not like it's her choice. What's she gonna do? Start a whole garden so that you can have some fresh fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's annoying too because they don't parent her at all in terms of like teaching her anything other than yelling at her. And then when she like forms the opinions of the society around her, they get mad at her. Because like
Yeah,
that's
they never treat her like a child. They went straight to treating her like an adult.
Yeah, they have
Yep.
too many extremes and they just need to be around her a little bit more. And I feel like they both avoid her as much as they can because they don't like the interactions they have with her and because they're too busy trying to fix the whole family.
I think it's really annoying because it's like, I think Malta, before like lots of the stuff she says is to just hurt. The problem is like there are nuggets of truth in there, but because she put herself in this position where she actually did steal the dream box and she's being like she's being vindictive. It's just like not getting through. And the same thing with Veronica where she's like insulting Malta and it's so the messages about like Kyle or whatever is not getting through. They're just like the well is so poisoned that they just cannot communicate.
One thing I was kind of confused about is if Malta is so like sneaky and vindictive and everything, why wouldn't she take the dream box, use it, and then put it back? Why would she take it and keep it? Or is that just a little bit of like Hobbs still showing us that Malta's still not fully an adult and she's still kind of a child because she's like, this is mine. I deserve to keep this. I shouldn't have to give it back.
she threw it across the room. And she had the thought, she was like, I'm not even going to put it away. Let them see it and know I took it. So it was just like a really childish, vindictive, like.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. I thought it was like she had like it's like one of those things where like the dream makes you like sleep really deeply, so she like overslept and like everyone else had already woken up and found the box missing by the time she was up or something.
Well, she got mad when she opened it and there was nothing in it.
Mm-hmm.
So she like threw it across the room and then she was like, I'm not even going to put it away. Let them see that I took it. And there was nothing in there. And then she like sleeps and has the dream. And by the time she wakes up, they're like, it's gone. And she's like, well, I didn't do it.
That little girl.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that we saw more of Selden because where the fuck is he? Like, where is this child? Who is taking care of him? Is he still alive? And is he okay?
Rach is
Honestly, given how things go in the series, it's a miracle that Selden doesn't like join like a street gang or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, given how stuff happens like in Hobbs stories, it would be I would just expect like or like Selden runs away to be a pirate
definitely
or
pull a
something.
Brashen of
Like, I don't know.
gambling and using Sinden and all that stuff because nobody's paying attention to it.
Mhm. I mean, okay, he's like, isn't he like 8 at this point?
He's
I
gonna
feel like
become
he's
a baby
little
drug
younger
dealer
than
or
this.
something.
like the little kid
he's
in
got
Euphoria.
his own little ring.
There's a little kid drug dealer in Euphoria?
Yeah.
Okay. I watched like the first 3 episodes and I don't think that's that.
It's not very good, but Well, I didn't think it was very good, but there is a little kid drug dealer.
Yeah.
Wild.
So that could be Selden.
Yep. Honestly, I feel like considering how shit of a job Ronica and Kefria do raising children, Selden's probably the best off of all the Vestra children at this point because he's
Well, I
getting
mean, to be
raised by
fair,
other
like,
people.
the reason they're shit is because they don't do
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
like, honestly, the only reason Selden ends up okay is because he gets, like, Tintaglia is like, I'll adopt you. And I'm not a good parent either, but
You
at
would
least I
think
am a
that, like,
parent.
Yeah. At least
you would think that Nana
doesn't-
would raise them better because I think she's the one who's raising the kids. So, like, you think she would
My
get them.
computer fell. Sorry.
I think she's doing her best. It feels like Malta just
Yeah,
straight up doesn't respect her anymore. And I think I think there's like a different dynamic between like caretaker and child and like parent and child, specifically when the parent is still in the picture and it's not like what do you call it? Like different type of guardian. I feel like in those situations like I feel like Nana probably defers to Ronica and Kefria for
Yeah,
like
definitely.
discussing important things.
And I still come back to why do they have to have Nana when Kefria doesn't have a job? Like, Ronica's never helped her with, or never let her help with any of the running of the household up until this point. So, like, why did they have a servant to raise the children all this time? When Kefria is just, what is she
Kefria doesn't
doing
do
all the
anything.
time?
And I think it's probably just like a status thing. It makes them look better that they can have someone else raise their children for them and not have to do it.
I've
And
said
I think it's also like didn't they say something about like Nana being in the family for a while? I think it's like one of those things where like probably Nana took care of like
Yeah, I
Kefria and Althea at some point, and it just kind of stayed on. Like if there's anything we've seen with the Vestrits, it's that they're very stubborn and they don't
I'll
change
bet she
habits
took
easily.
care of
So
the boys, like Ronica and Ephraim's sons. And then when they died, they just kept Nana on because she was probably just as distraught as they were at losing them. And so they're like, just stay on until the kids have kids.
mm. What's up happening to Nana? Does she just like when like the whole like fall of Bingtown happened? Does she just like run away to her countryside home and like
I think
weather
Ronica
it out
sends
or
her there.
whatever?
I think Ronica. Yeah, I was gonna say I think Ronica like lets her go live
I think
there.
she encourages it and is like, please go because it's dangerous now.
Yeah, shit's hitting the fan.
Okay, cool. She deserves it
for
after all
sure.
the shit she has to put up with.
After all the rotten kids she's had to raise.
Anyways, looping back around to the end of this chapter, um, in addition to like finding out that he's a Ludluck, Kennit is like, yeah, I knew Egrod once. He's kind of exaggerated, and it's just like it's like an offhand line, and it's like, but I feel like this is the first time we've heard of Egrod as more
Yeah.
than just like a legend, and also associating him with Kennit. I didn't even remember that he
No, me
mentions it this early on, because I felt like I was yeah, because I felt like later on I was having more trouble like putting together the pieces, but like yeah.
Yeah, he straight up says it.
hmm
Yeah, and then he starts kind of having a nightmare about Egrot, like when he's getting carried back to his bed by Sorkor.
It
Oh wait, I don't like the timing of that
It like
dream.
starts
I didn't
off as a
realize
dream of
it.
like his dad like dancing him around, and then it morphs into a dream of Egrot after. And I think it's because like they mentioned his name, and so like that's in Kennet's head
mentioned.
when he's like kind of passing out.
It also like kind of references the scene right before this. Paragon and Amber are talking, and Amber, like right before it ends, mentions something about like the child who rants within Paragon, and then it cuts to Kennit, and like Egrat is mentioned, and he has the
Yeah,
snake bag
Amber
tree.
says, "So for the sake of the child who rants and threatens from within the wooden bones of a ship, I will buy you and keep you safe, or as safe as fate will allow me." And like, that does hit kind of hard, especially because no one really kept Kennit safe when he was a kid on Paragon.
Right.
I feel like I usually don't like characters where like their central thing is like the world hurt me, so I'm gonna hurt the world. But I kind of feel like Kennit is sort of the best slash most nuanced handling of that idea.
Yeah, and it's not even like he wants to hurt the world though, because he like I feel like his intentions of becoming king of like the pirates is not to like I think it's like to rule people fairly. I think that he still like wants
Oh well,
yeah,
fairly for benefiting him, but
yeah,
yeah,
he's
he's not
not
like
like I'm gonna
destructive.
around.
He's just he's it's just like yeah, I guess that's the difference. It's just like that his internal worldview is completely
I think that
warped.
Kenneth is trying to regain the control that he feels he lost when he was a child. And him, like his
Mhm.
end goal of becoming king of the Pirate Isles is just a way of trying to control what he couldn't before.
And like the whole getting a live ship is like I'm going to literally like retread slash rewrite the story of my youth,
Yeah.
except I'm the one in control now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, this series is so good. I'm having like so much like especially since it's the second time I'm reading it, like there's so much that like went over my head the first time that I'm like
Same.
just eating up now.
I'm liking it a lot. Like, I liked it the first time, but I didn't like it nearly as much as, like, the Fitz books. Um, I liked it, like, the way I would like any other fantasy that I might read. But
Exactly.
on this, yeah, on this read, I have, like, a better appreciation for
I
it.
devoured all these books, so it's
Mhm.
just the same.
It's just like so well structured.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I think Madship is my favorite one, is my favorite book in this trilogy, so I'm so excited to get to that. Like, we're so close, and I'm very ready.
I love our
It's gonna be
artwork we
so
have for
good.
that one, too.
Mhm. Yeah, Kendra kind of went off on that
Definitely.
one.
Yeah.
But anyways, before we get on to talking about our future art, let's talk about the focus of our current one, Vivacia. In the next chapter, chapter 30,
That was very
Defiance and Alliance. So,
That was a
huh?
good transition.
yeah, that was so
We're
smooth. That
impressed.
was really good.
Thanks, y'all. But yeah, so in this chapter we see the slaves being loaded onto Vivacia officially, and kind of her feelings about being used as a slaver. Um, Wintrow, we also get to see Wintrow and Kyle for the first time since the slave market. Um, and then the second half of this chapter, um, there's a scene with Johnny Kupras, Calwa, and Kefri on Ronica, where Ronica wants to finally pay off part of the debt for the live ships, especially since it's accrued over time. But in a twist, Johnny's like, actually, I bought your debt and I was gonna clear it if you let Malta marry Rain. But now you're saying that Malta doesn't want to marry Rain, and this is kind of awkward because I thought this was gonna be all like copacetic and I thought everything was gonna be cool. So yeah,
A little bit awkward.
It was awkward. Especially at the end when it got like when Johnny was basically like, "Well, you owe me the money, so we'll
Yeah, she's
steal
like, I'm
her if we
taking
have
Malta
to."
regardless. She like got her heart set on Rain marrying her, and now she's like, Malta's basically mine already, so sucks to suck.
Mhm.
Johnny feels like another mom who would wear a wedding dress. If her
Yes,
kids
and
were-
she would like upstage the bride. Like she would wear a better like designer dress while the bride like didn't get that nice. Like the bride had to make her own dress and she came in this very expensive designer one that she's just gonna like throw out later. She's like, "Oh, this old thing, I just pulled it out of my closet." Except she had it made specifically for the wedding.
If
Well,
Veronica,
I feel like from how they describe Johnny in this chapter, I feel like she'd wear something that's like subtly more fancy. And it could also be a designer dress, but like it wouldn't be like over the top or whatever. It would just be like, yeah, yeah. It was just they've- this has been in the family for so long, and like it's got like diamond trim or something, just something like something that like you don't notice at first, but it's like, yeah, we are very
Definitely.
wealthy.
I think all of my notes were about the Vivacia section just because I felt so bad for her. And like thinking about what happens in the later sections with like Theophilia and stuff, I feel like none of the other live ships had to have known that she was going to be a slave ship, right? Because they would have rioted. There's no way they could have let that happen. Like the live ships themselves would have been like freaking out.
I don't think that the Vestrits let anybody know outside of like their family and the people on the ship because Veronica's so obsessed with
Oh
appearances and it
yeah,
would make them
of
look
course it
terrible.
would. But like, did she shows that she doesn't understand fully what a live ship is? Like, she may come from a trader family, but she is not fully a like live ship trader because this is the way that it's affecting Vivacia is very dangerous to the whole crew, and she could have easily become like another Paragon.
Yep.
I mean, she comes like this close. She's literally thinking about like rolling over.
Yeah, I think that if Kennit hadn't come when he did and Bolt didn't take over, that she would have, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think even earlier than that. If Kyle hadn't brought Wintrow back, it was over. I think she literally just she's like, Gantry, you're an okay guy, but like I'll murder you if I have to. Wintrow though, unfortunately I can't murder him.
Hmm. Well, and Kyle like purposely torments her because he feels rejected by her. Kyle's like that guy who's like, you didn't say yes to going on a date with me, so I'm gonna
Yeah, he
murder
starts
you.
off super flirty and nice and being so sweet and everything like that. And then the second he gets a rejection, he's like, well, I didn't even want to go out with you anyways. You're so ugly. Like, I was just doing it as a joke.
Yes.
Women are such bitches, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how
This
he
always
is.
happens to me.
One of those guys. I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
nice. I don't get it.
Hmm. I think it's yeah, I think the way that Kyle treats and talks to Vivacia is because we've already established that he's a huge, massive asshole. But I think that like it's there to provide like a contrast for
Oh,
how Kennit
definitely.
later treats her. Because, because again, like if all you've experienced is someone being incredibly shitty, of course you're going to be taken in by like
By
the
someone who's
first.
semi nice.
And
Yeah,
like Kenneth actively tries to court her and like win her affections too. So he's like doing everything in his power to get her to like him. And Kyle did everything in his power to like make
And,
her life miserable.
and it still takes a while because I remember her being like, you're not my family for
Hmm.
a long time with Kennit.
She like feels drawn to him, but she does say like, I can never care for you like I care for my family.
Right.
like they talk about Wintrow's shared awareness of the slaves and their misery through Vivacia, and it's like another hint that like there's some skill, witty
Definitely.
magic thing going on here. And I feel like they've like slowly ramped up how explicit they're being about that about the magical nature of that connection.
Yeah.
This is one of the most explicit ones.
Especially when she like pulls away from him and he like is kind of startled by the like lack of connection then. And he even says like he had to like look at her face to kind of feel what she was feeling and like try and guess the emotions because he couldn't feel them anymore.
It's yeah, sorry. It's like it's really reminds me of like the times when Fitz is separated from his
Yeah.
wit bonds. It's like
Mhm.
that a part of you didn't
It
even know
reminded
that you
me
had.
also of the like stark difference of when the connection is always broken between Fitz and Verity. Like when Verity leaves and Fitz is like, "Oh my gosh, like I was suddenly alone." Like that's what it really reminded me of.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
true too.
I was also thinking, and I think that later on Kyle basically said this in his like thoughts, but I am sure that Kyle would have respected Vivacia more and maybe even listened to her if she had been carved as a man instead of a woman.
Yeah, he's literally. I have that as one of my notes in I think the next chapter. Kyle's so misogynistic that he literally hates Vivacia just because she was carved with
And
tits.
it's ridiculous.
It's horrible.
I loved the little subtle rebellions that Vivacia had. And like in the moment, I was like, yes, you go, girl. But now thinking about it, like the way that she makes it difficult and she like starts listing to one side and then she'll go to the other side and then she'll like drag her anchor a little bit. I feel like that's all precursor to pulling a paragon. Like I think that that is stuff that he
Yes.
would or has done, and it's warning signs that the crew should have like listened and noticed to because very
Like later she begins like
They did
literally
all get
like
scared. Like, didn't some of them leave?
oh yeah, a
Because,
bunch of them just like left in the middle of the night.
yeah.
Yeah, later doesn't she like sail against the way that they're trying to scare
yeah.
her or
Mhm.
something? It's like that's when they have like no control over her. It's
Yeah.
over at that point.
Does what she wants.
My only other note, I think, for this chapter is there's a part where Kefria is like being like, poor me, poor me. Um, and she thinks about like what she'll do in the future. And if like Ronica dies and everything goes to her, and she's like, oh, if I just give everything to Kyle, then I can just garden and drink tea in peace. And it's like, bitch, you know that he'll be selling slaves and shit. Like, she's so selfish that she literally would rather like have her family traffic in slaves and be like, well, at least I can plant things and no one will bother me.
Not give
I hate her.
No, okay, see, I was gonna say that this is the first chapter where I felt a little like I felt for her a little bit because to me that section didn't read as like it read as her like going over a dream that she no longer fully believed in, but she was doing it just because it was like going through the motions. Because the entire context of that is just like she's so exhausted and over everything, right? She's like
Mm-hmm.
love, she thought dejectedly, was based on things. All based on things and the power to control things. If you gave up power to people, then they loved you. Funny. Since she had discovered that, she little cared if anyone loved her or not anymore. I think she's just like the way that she's always like coped with this exhaustion and stress is just like I just want to fuck off somewhere and do my own thing. But so she's like imagining that, but she knows she can't like that doesn't make sense anymore. Like she can't go back to that. So
I think she would if she had the chance, though. at this point in the story. Like if I think if Ronica died right now, Kefria would be like, "Oh well, I don't know what to do. I'll just let Kyle handle it."
I could see her doing that just because she is so desperate for like money and because they're in so much debt that she'd be like, well, Kyle has to do what he's got to do because we have to or else we'll be homeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm willing to give her a little more benefit of the doubt, but I think it's valid to read it either way. Especially given like Kefria's incredibly less than stellar track record.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm excited for the courting in Madship. I'm very excited for that. That's going to be fun. I'm gonna see Rain some more. Yeah,
Between Rain and
I think
Malta.
it'll be good.
Yeah, once we get to find out that Rain is not in fact like a creepy middle-aged man, it's
Yeah, do
just a
we get his
doofus.
point of view in the next book? Like he becomes one of the like main characters almost.
I think so because I think they
Yeah.
go back to the Rain
And
Wilds,
we
right?
like
Where we
get
get some.
him and Tintaglia almost talking together or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like for a while, it's just like this voice in his dreams, and you don't really know what it is. But
I'm excited.
I think my last note for this chapter is just I love the way that Hobb kind of unflinchingly looks at how people act around slavery, where she's like, each person was coming to terms with it in his own way, was inventing other ways of seeing tattooed humans, other words to associate with them. Like, this entire series is just like Hobb being like, you are not allowed to be passive in the face of atrocity, and
Mm-hmm.
hammering that in.
like everybody who's on the ship, even if they don't like it or want to be there, is still guilty. Like Gantry's like, this is the last time I'll work a slaver. I hate this. But
Working a
he's still
slaver.
complicit. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot more to talk about with that in the last chapter, but 100%. But yeah, let's move on to chapter 31, Ships and Serpents. We stick with Vivacia's point of view here, and it's basically just her talking with Wintrow and them coming to terms with the nature of their relationship in the aftermath of Wintrow running away. Um, and then I think the only other point of view in this chapter is uh, we see Althea on her new assignment on the Ophelia, and we get Ophelia as a character for the first time, and it's lovely
Yeah.
and it's great. It's a nice breath of fresh air before everything that
Yeah. Before
happens
all the shit
the
hits
next
the fucking
chapter.
fan.
I love
Me
Ophelia.
too. She is amazing. I wish that she was our live ship a little bit. Like I like Vivacia and stuff, but I really like Ophelia.
Mm.
I think also she's had a lot more time to like develop her own personality. And the problem with Vivacia is she's still so young and she like doesn't have anything that she can associate with just herself.
And she like wakes up and is
Yeah.
immediately tormented.
Meanwhile, everyone in the Ophelia loves her. She's just like
Yeah.
the ship mom.
Yeah. She's like, come play games with me.
I
I'll cheat the
know.
whole
I
time.
love
But
that.
Right. She's the ship. Why not? Yeah, never mind.
yeah, she's the ship. Why not? Why not?
Mhm. And I love like the description of like I'm pretty sure she cheats, but like it's okay because like it's just for fun anyways.
Right.
What are her payments? Like, what is she going to request from all the people that owe her? Like, it's just secrets and gossip that she wants,
She,
really.
like, Yeah, I was gonna say, I know she makes Althea pay her in secrets. I
For
wonder if
sure.
she just does that with everybody. I would love that. I would like make people pay
Yes,
me
oh
in
my
ghost
same.
stories.
But
Oh,
they have
that's
to
so
be real.
good.
They can't be made up or anything.
Right. It has to be like you heard that this happened to your friend or like
Yeah,
this was your own ghost story.
That feels like it would make a fantastic anthology
certainly.
series.
Mhm.
Like you have just like one character going around being like, "You lost. Pay me in your best
It
ghost
would be
story, random
good.
person."
I did that to all my coworkers when I got them on meetings, like one on one. After we're done
Mm.
talking about work
Oh my
stuff, I'd
god,
make them
I
tell me a
love
ghost
that.
story.
Oh yeah, I remember like ages ago I used to watch like the H3H3 podcast. This was like back when I was in high school, and they used to do that with every guest where it's like at the end of the show they'd be like, "Do you have any ghost stories or like supernatural stuff?" I think it's just a really compelling thing because even if you don't believe in supernatural stuff, everyone has that one thing that makes them go,
That
"I
makes
don't
me
know."
Christian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, Vivacia's ghost story is just there are serpents in the bottom of the bay. Please believe me.
Bothers me so much
Right.
that nobody believes her.
And everyone's like, no.
They write her off and
Right.
they ignore her, and like they're basically gaslighting this poor girl.
Well, and I think like maybe
But
Gantry
he's
does
probably
believe her,
scared.
but he's like, but I don't
And
know
he
what to
wants to
do
keep her
about
calm,
it.
so he's like,
You
"You're
know?
imagining it. It's fine."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Gantry just doesn't want to imagine the ramifications of if she's right. So
Right.
he just chooses to ignore it and just be like, "Ah, yeah, she's crazy." But yeah, speaking of serpents, lots of shit goes down in this chapter related to like live ships' identities, and this is like the most blatant they are. With like live ships used to be something else, and it's related to the serpents. The Vivacious like talking to Winter, and she's like, "I think you're the anchor that keeps me who I am. I think that is why a live ship needs one of her own family aboard her." Which we were speculating that last chapter because we weren't quite sure. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that we confirmed. Um, and Vivacia is also like, "Wintrow, what was I before I was a live ship?" And Wintrow's like, "You were a
For
fucking
a lot
tree."
of trees.
You were a tree.
But yeah, then there's later where she like slaps the serpent and she's like, "It knew me, but I wasn't me." And it's like, oh my god, like
Mhm.
everything is seated in there.
Well, she has this memory too, like, or fake. She says this to Wintrow, while you were gone, I could almost recall something else, like wind in my face, only stronger. Moving so swiftly of my own free will, I could almost recall being someone. And it's like she's so close to to figuring it out or remembering.
If Winter had been gone like a day or two longer, Bolt would have come out for sure.
Yes.
It's interesting that that didn't happen to Paragon. That like,
I think it's because he has too many, like, personalities warring for dominance within him.
mhm,
And we've got
that
two
makes
dragons,
sense.
so it's probably harder to even have them work together to remember that they're dragons, let alone them and like young Kennit and all of the other people who died on his ship or on like his hull and all that stuff.
Right.
Oh yeah, I remember last chapter. It was like Amber went through and pointed out all the bloodstains, and Paragon's like, he didn't make her notice the four that she missed, nor did he tell her about the stories about
Or
how they
any of
died
their
screaming.
names.
And it's like, mm-hmm. I love like the Paragon point of view because I feel like it's such a good way of like teasing the audience with little pieces of information, but it doesn't feel like a cop out, even though it's a point of view character, because Paragon's active has a trauma that makes him actively
Yeah.
not want to think about it. So it doesn't feel like a I'm not telling this to the reader just because I want to keep a secret. It's like this makes sense in character also for him not to want to
Definitely.
consider. This is also the chapter where Wintrow is at his most annoying in the
Yeah.
in the series. Like when he told Vivacia, "I'm more of a slave than you," I'm like, boy,
That
if you
pissed
don't
me
shut
off.
the
She
fuck
should have
up.
grabbed his ass and
Right.
throttled his little neck. He is the least slave of all of the slaves on the ship, let alone Vivacia herself. Like, he is free to wander about
Right.
and do basically whatever he wants still. He can do, like, if he really wanted to be free, he could have just jumped right off and swam away or gotten eaten by the serpent. But, like, we won't talk about that.
It's really annoying too because he's like, because before when he was in this slave cage, he's like, yeah, people choose to be slaves, and it's like, well, most
Yeah.
people don't. Only you do. In this moment, you are trapping
So
yourself in
weird.
this mentality. Mhm.
I wonder, like, from this section, I was wondering just like the way Kyle reacts towards Gantry is so different than the way he reacts towards Brashen. And it kind of confused me a little bit because Gantry was one of Ephron's men. And like when Kyle like beats the shit out of Wintrow and then almost throws him overboard, Gantry's like, "What are you doing?" and like gives him a bad look, and Kyle just ignores it. I'm like, if Brashen talked to him like that, if he hadn't already kicked him off the ship, he would have. Like he allows Gantry to talk to him in a way that he like wouldn't allow from other people, and I wonder if he's just like not threatened by him or
That's
something.
what I was thinking. I was
know.
thinking that Gantry's already shown Kyle that he won't try to like steal the crew's loyalty or like try and become the captain. And that's why Kyle's like, oh, you're no threat to me. But because Brashen was like first mate for Ephron, and because everyone on the crew felt such a strong tie of loyalty to him,
Loved him.
that's where the threat really came in. But since Gantry's already proved himself, Kyle will like accept a little bit more from him than he would from other people. And I think he's also still shocked himself. Like, I think the white serpent used some glamour on Kyle to get him to feed to Wintrow to it. And then he's like snapping out of it. So he's still like, wait, did I really just do that? And that's why he like accepts that from Gantry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I also get the vibe that like everyone liked Brashen, but I don't know how much they would have like followed him. Where it feels like Gantry is like a much older and like world-wise sailor, and I feel like the crew kind of respects him a little more. I don't even know if like they wouldn't respect Brashen. I think he was just young and they wouldn't like follow. They don't like. I don't think they look to him in the same way
Yeah,
that they look to
I can
Gantry.
see that.
He's just like a lot more even-headed. But yeah, my last note for this chapter is just like Wintrow being like, I no longer have any choice as to what I will do. And it's like, I feel like the entire point of the series is like, you always, always, always have a choice. It's just that we we choose not to look at some choices because they seem untenable, because of how we imagine ourselves, but there's always a choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Um, My last note for this chapter is I was thinking about, because Ophelia was saying, like, we live ships hate violence. So that's why we would have all, like, not sailed if we knew that they were going to use Vivacia for slavery. And I thought that was interesting because the dragons are, like, pretty fucking violent. Like, they will just eat each other and they want to eat people and, like, they're aggressive. So it's interesting that the live ships hate it.
I think it's more. It is difficult for the live ships to like deal with the violence and stuff because when human blood is spilt on them, they kind of like absorb that, and that's not stuff that they want. Like they don't want all of those like memories and everything attached with the blood of like the violence. And that's more why they don't like it, not because they're like so docile and everything. Heart.
Right. That makes sense.
I think they also just don't like violence because like it brings the dragon
Yeah,
closer to
I
the
can see that.
surface. Probably.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like even if they don't have like a name for it, they're just like, I
Yeah.
feel less myself around violence.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It could also be like a dragon instinct of like we protect our own. We're like they we are like our own species and we got to do what we got to do for ourselves because I know that like that's like something that comes up a lot in Rain Wilds later. Like the sort of like dragon solidarity, at least when they get to Kelsingra.
Well, Ophelia also mentions that like they have to sail past Paragon every time they leave Bingtown, and it's just a reminder that they failed one live ship, they can't fail another one. Because she does say that there's like a limited amount of us to begin with, so we can't lose another ship, basically.
Right.
Is the White Serpent any of the dragons that we know? Or does the White Serpent like die like later on in this book? How do
I
you know?
think it might be this. I think it might be
Is that the
Spit.
silver one?
The silver. Yeah, the silver,
Yeah,
like really mean
that's what I was
one.
thinking. That's the only one that I thought it could be.
That scans.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there's so many serpents in this book. And there are only so many, like a certain number of dragons that it's hard to like have every serpent become a dragon.
Mhm.
Right.
It's just every time I see a color
Yeah.
mentioned, I'm like, oh.
Well, and I think like outside of Malkin, the main ones that we know, like Shriver and Sasuria or whatever, I think only Malkin makes it to a dragon in the
Oh, okay.
Rain Wilds. I think the rest of them, the rest of the dragons are just like random serpents that are part of the tangle.
Okay. Well, that's sad.
Because one of them's green and there isn't like
Yeah.
a major green dragon in Rain Wilds.
Are
That would steal
there
Tentacle's thunder.
more serpents at the end of like Rain Wilds and all that stuff? Like, are the dragons just kind of on their own and they're like, we're gonna lay more eggs and have more serpents later? Or, and like they're like leaving the rest of the serpents for dead? Or did all of the serpents try and come up? Because I thought they kind of like ditched some of them because they were like too far gone.
I don't remember. Well, I think some of them like did just had no memory of like what they're even doing. So they're just like, we're gonna stay serpents and eat slaves and shit. Like they couldn't force them. They were like too far serpenty. They were just basically like fish. No,
They wouldn't be able to complete the cocoon process.
Are they eventually just
Right.
gonna age and die then? They can't just stay serpents forever.
I think so, yeah.
Or yeah, probably on a scale that's like
Yeah.
still forever. But yeah.
Dang.
I love Vivacia's like philosophy. I'm jumping to a completely different thing. I love the way she like thinks through like, okay, what is my relationship to you? How do I like make myself how do I make myself myself? If I can disagree with Wintrow, that means I can't be Wintrow. And so I can split
Mm-hmm.
myself off from him. Which like I really like the way she thinks through that. But also, Vivacia, it, you can totally be yourself and disagree with yourself. It's called choice paralysis, and I have this
Dang.
every day.
Yeah. I just feel bad.
Like, do not take me to an ice cream place. I
Oh my
will be
God.
stuck between 5
Roll a
flavors.
dice. Assign them to each one,
So
and then
true.
that's what you pick.
The true reason Ophelia likes gambling.
I feel like the dice that she has, they have to be made of like wizard wood or something, right? Because how else would she be able to cheat?
Yeah, they're probably like made from her.
It was like
I don't
scraps
know
or
if they
leftover or
say
something.
that. hmm Um, yeah, I guess my last note for the chapter is just Althea dreaming of
I know, I
Brashen
love that.
is, and the way that Ophelia says it really reminds me of how like Verity was like, so who is Lady Red Skirts who comes to my dream? Like it has the
Absolutely,
same
it
vibe.
does. I love that.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry, I had to get
That's
more
fine.
coffee.
You just missed us gushing about
Yes.
Althea dreaming about Brashen.
Oh, I loved that.
I can't wait for them to be back together again.
hmm the whole Grag Althea thing in the middle just
I
feels so annoying.
I felt
Not even because like it's just like they're so incompatible with each other. It's not even funny.
well, and Althea knows it, but she like strings him along, which
She's basically like, this
Yeah.
is my extended rebound.
yeah, I feel bad for him a little bit because you can tell he really likes her and he has liked her for a long time, and she's like, well, I guess if I don't get my ship and I decide I don't want to keep fucking Brashen,
I
I
mean, she could
could marry
still be
him.
like having Brashen on the side at the same time. I could see her doing something like that.
That's true.
Yeah, we haven't even met the guy yet. I
No, yeah.
I like how Ophelia ships them so
Yeah.
hard.
Because she loves Althea, so having Althea be part of the family, like that's her probably dream come true.
Mhm.
Right.
We good to
Yes,
move
I
to the
think
final
so.
chapter of this section? Okay. Chapter 32, The Storm, aka the thing that I thought happened in the literal last chapter of this book. So, uh, shit goes down. Uh, there's a big storm. Uh, Wintrow accidentally enables a slave rebellion. Kyle catches sight of Vivacia and is like, "That's my live ship. Take me to her."
hmm
So yeah, I remember last chapter we were talking about like I know Kennit drowned someone, but I don't remember who. And then as soon as I saw this character, I'm like, "This is the one. This is the guy Kennit murders."
Because but he's like
Yeah,
bad
he
by the
is.
time Kennit murders him.
He
Like,
yeah, he's like he's a dick. He's trying to
yeah,
consolidate power for himself and like
right.
do all that shit.
I remember I was getting like a sense of foreboding from him, and I was like, why do I feel this? He's another priest. Wintrow should be friends with him. And then I was like, oh, I remember now.
Yeah, he was
doesn't end
sketch
up being
right from the
good.
beginning.
My only note for this whole chapter, because I got really sucked into it, is just it's sad when Gantry dies.
My only note is Gantry should have listened to Vivacia when she told him to get off the ship. Like, he could still be living.
Oh, big time.
He could still be alive.
Big time. And it makes me really happy that Brashen
Yeah,
did get
oh,
off
definitely.
the ship.
But yeah, I feel like the entire death of Gantry is just like this extended, like, beating you over the head message of like being complicit is like,
This is bad.
or like being passive in the face of atrocity is the same as participating in it, because he's like,
Right.
there's so many lines where it's like talking about Wintrow. The boy had become an accusation to him, a living reminder of all Gantry chose to ignore. And he's like, a simple bit of mercy he could offer, but he wanted to hold it back. Why? Because if the small act of taking pity on a dying man was the right thing to do, then he pushed the thought away from him. He was made on this vessel. He had his job, and it wasn't his place to decide all of it was wrong. Even if he faced that thought, what could one man do about it? Basically, I'm just
Yeah.
following orders, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the last question. Even if you face the thought, what could one man do about it? Because we see Amber go on to like, it, as one because again, like there's another part where like Gantry's like talking about like, if I said it out loud, like what would that change? And it's like, well, then it goes from one person doing something about it
Yeah.
to two people doing something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Which like, I think that Wintrow and Ronica learn the same lesson, but they get to live because they're main characters. So
Yeah. Especially Ronica. Like, Ronica is worse than Wintrow because she's old enough that she should know better, and she was raised in a different environment. Like, Wintrow's raised in the time, like Malta, where slavery is, like, acceptable, and they are both so young that they aren't, like, forming their own thoughts as much yet. And they kind of go on to do that throughout the book. But Ronica was raised, like, when slavery was really bad, when that wasn't, like, the norm, and she's old enough to know better, and she's still, like...
and like she knows it's bad, she just refuses to do anything about it.
Right, she just won't even stand up to, like, her
So
friend
weird.
and be like, you shouldn't do that, that's wrong. Yeah, she's so obsessed with appearances, it's so annoying.
And she's a traitor. She has the power to like bring
Yeah.
this up to a vote.
Right.
But instead it gets left to other people to do. I guess my other big note for the chapter is just like, I think it's really interesting how, because I think we've talked a little bit about like Kennit's sort of being maybe like a foil to Fitz in some ways, or like not a foil, but like you can see overlaps in how he acts with how Fitz acts, because he's also like he has a lot of qualities that we associate with heroes. It's just like they're so submerged under like his virulent assholery. Like he's like absolutely stupid determination to be like, I'm gonna walk, I'm gonna like go to this ship, I'm gonna board it. Like it's the kind of determination and conviction that we want to see from Wintrow, for example. But it's just the on a hero character, it would be like an admirable show of like values. But for him, it's kind of you're being dumb and stupid, Kennit. Come on now.
I didn't even think about that.
It's kind of like how Fitz has, I know I've like drawn that comparison before, but Fitz also has like hero qualities, but for him, they're buried in like self-doubt and like stupidity. I love Fitz, but like
His decision making's not the best.
Mm-hmm. He's not the
Unfortunately,
sharpest
no.
tool in the stable. Which honestly isn't a knock on him, from what we've seen. Some of those horses, real smart.
Yeah.
I think my last note was just a set of raw lines from Kennit, where he's like, Sorkor is like talking about how Vivacia is gonna like crash into the island or whatever because of the storm, and Sorkor's like, let her go to her fate, and Kennit's like, I am her fate. Let's go, take me to her, and it's like, I hate the guy, but he's got some. He, uh, Robin Hobb gave him some
Yeah.
raw ass lines.
He's very confident. And I love that he says that, and it's like true, actually. Like, I'm sure this is what was like kind of supposed to happen in, like, if Amber was seeing this stuff, like, this is what needed to have happened for everything to happen in the future. So, like, he actually is Vivacia's fate.
And like, there's the thing of like all the world and everyone in it opposed him in his quest, and he like all of these thoughts are like such like catalyst thoughts of like I'm gonna change the course of fate, and it's like those the line of like let her go to her fate, I am her fate. It reminded me a lot of like Fitz like being Fitz at the end of Tawny Man being like, no, I don't care about fate or like whatever. I'm going to bring the fool back. Like
It also reminds me of what Amber was talking about, like the quality that Althea and Wintrow both have of like they fight against their destiny and fate because they're like they see it and they're like, this isn't what I want, so they change it. And I think that that's kind of what Kennit is doing too. He's like fighting against his own fate, and that's something that Amber probably would have been like drawn to or noticed from him.
who is it that hates Amber? Is it Torg? It's not Torg. It's some other.
It starts with an L. It's like
L,
Lauf
right?
or something.
Okay.
Yeah. Loudwin. Loudwin? No, Loudwin is the dude from Tawny Man.
I know it starts with an L too, so I'm sure once we see it, we'll be like, oh yeah, that guy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think one thing that I like that the whole Realm of the Elderlings series does, which is sort of a subversion of, I think, how this fantasy trope would normally go, is I find it really annoying when there's like one destined chosen hero and they're the only one who can determine the course of history. And when you read Farseer for the first time, it seems like that's what's happening with Fitz, with like the catalyst and all that. But Fitz plays an important role, but it's just sort of like being in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are like in the end, it's Verity is the hero who makes things happen. Like Ketrican is the hero who makes things happen. There are all these other people who come together to enact change. It isn't just one person or even one family, even though they. And I think that like Life Ships goes even harder on that with like the idea of like all these people have analytic qualities, and it could have been any of them, and it just kind of ends up as like I love how like it's not like a contrast, but it's sort of like it provides this like nuance to Farseer where it's like fate is fluid and
Amber has to work with what
happens.
she's given at the time because like they have to choose Althea because Wintrow's not there and Althea's like the closest thing to it, to like the catalyst type energy that Amber needs. Yeah.
Catalyst vibes.
I kind of feel like it works out better that Amber ends up with Althea because Wintrow, for all of like the good he does, is not somebody that is good at listening to other people. So even if Amber would have tried to like provide guidance for him, I don't know how well he would have listened to it. She would have been like, "This is an opportunity. Like, you can help make change," and he'd just be like, "I'm a slave.
So very awesome.
Poor me."
I wonder if she would have been able to engage with him on like the same philosophical level, but I guess Vivacia does that, and he still goes, he's still a little
Amber would
shit.
be more
So-
persistent and
Right.
try harder, but Wintrow is so very passive that I just don't think he would get anything done. Like Amber would try their best, but like it's
I feel
not. They definitely have more success with Althea.
right. I feel like Winter is the type of person that has to like make his own mistakes because he can't like listen to advice or learn from
He's like,
other
just because
people.
you did it wrong doesn't mean like
He has
me
to, like,
doing it will
fall
be
into it.
wrong.
Right. He has to
It
kind of
seems like the catalysts have like distinct qualities: incredibly passive, stubborn as fuck, mildly
Probably.
stupid.
Maybe a little bit more.
Mhm. But yeah, as we're reading this, I feel like I might appreciate the ending of Live Ships more than I did the first time I read it. Just because of how like being able to like see themes, and I feel like by the time I get to that point, I'm going to like have a different reading of how everything shakes out.
I liked the ending of Live Ships. I was like, especially after the end of Farseer and how miserable Fitz is. Like, it's the end of Farseer is unsatisfying in that Fitz sacrifices so much, and at the end, he ends up in a hut by himself with nothing but his wolf. Like, he doesn't have his best friend, he doesn't have like the love of his life, you know?
He's like, I routinely think of killing myself. I will stay here in
Right.
this hut with my
Like,
boy and drug myself.
I'm just living in my depression hut for 20 years.
30, yeah.
Whereas like the end of this book, it's not what they wanted for the end of this trilogy, but like Althea and Brashen are happy, and Wintrow is happy, and Malta is happy.
It is a
you know?
very satisfying
Like,
ending.
Yeah.
they top version of a happy ending.
I think this is one of the happiest
So,
endings that we
I
get
really
out of
liked
all
it.
of the trilogies and series.
Yeah.
Out of this entire
I was super happy for Malta, don't get me wrong. I think more of my issue is how stuff with Kennit ended up. Because I was like, this is dumb. Isn't this like there's no thematic significance. It's all just luck and nothing matters. And I think that was the more I read, I feel like that's more of a function of me just not picking up on some stuff. But maybe I'll get to there and I'll be like, yeah, okay, maybe this is kind of dumb still. But we'll see.
Yeah, I kind of wish that Kennit had
I was just
more pain a little bit.
yeah, I was
Or not even more pain. I because like obviously that would have been satisfying, but like it felt weird how like he was built up. There's all this like significance around him, and like even like his like talking charms, like fate is bringing you here, Kennit. You're gonna end up the same as Egrot or whatever, and then just like he just kind of gets stabbed by a random pirate and dies, and it's like,
Kind of.
huh? Huh?
I think
That might
I
actually
Was
be a
there thematic
good
significance
ending
there?
though, because it's kind of like the ending of like the whole series where it's like you may have done all these great and amazing things, but like you're still human and you're still mortal, and little things that hurt you can like end up killing you.
That's fair, and like it adds to like that idea of the
Yeah.
subversion of the idea of fate, where it's like, yeah, I think the first time I read it, I was just like, you built up all of this for me, for what? But yeah, I think that even if the ending of the series was disappointing for me the first time, the ending of this book definitely wasn't. I'm excited to and I'm
Me
excited to
too. It's gonna
discuss
be
it on the
great.
final episode next time. Again, I don't even. I like vaguely remember what happens based on like the last chapter title, but like the other three, I'm just like anything could happen.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't remember what happens. Like, this is what I remember for the end of the book. Like, I think Kennit's gonna finish taking over the ship and Torg's gonna die, and then
Yeah,
that's all
that's
I
all I
remember.
remember too. Because I think that
Mhm.
the amputation and stuff happens in the next book.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't. What other point of view characters do we see in this book? I feel like we don't see Brashen again. We might see Althea again. We might get like one more thing
I
of
feel like a lot of
Bingtown.
it is Wintrow and stuff.
Well, I know the last chapter is like 2 pages, and
Is
I
it
think it's
just, it's
Serpents.
not
Yeah.
the actual She Who Remembers where she's trapped and stuff, is it?
No, because I
No,
think that
there's
happens at
I
the end of
know
the
it happens
next
at the
book,
end of
where
a
Wintrow
book.
frees
I
her.
just wasn't sure which book it was.
Hmm. No, yeah, no, because Wintrow gets like hella injured in the process, and then like
yeah.
lots of book 3 is having to nurse him back to health.
He gets like all his
Yeah,
skin scalded off, doesn't he? Or like a bunch
Yeah,
yeah.
of his
and
back scalded off.
I remember that like specifically, he gets his like skin scalded off, and then he gets thrown into the ocean where salt
Perfect.
water like
Yeah. Hates into it.
he
Yeah.
literally rubbing salt in the wound.
Yikes.
But yeah, do we have anything else
That's it.
to
I'm
talk
excited
about?
for next week.
Me too.
Nice. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week for the final episode of Ship of Magic. And then, like, a week after that, the live show, or maybe not so live show, for the book as a whole. So, see y'all then,
Bye.
and bye!